the creators of this test purposely design questions that will punish people who use algebra and benefit people who use reasoning. Hey, this is Avi Gutman with another Ask Me Anything event brought to you by quantreasoning.com. I invite you to join me live next time. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can attend for free by starting your free trial at quantreasoning.com. Okay, so I think I'll start with the algebraic solution, but I want to go through that one rather quickly because it's very easy to find the algebraic solution online by Googling it. And then I want to go on to the number line reasoning solution, which I think is a lot more interesting. But what you'll see that the two solutions have in common is how important it is to make full use of the free info before we go to evaluate the statements. Right? We want to simplify the question as much as possible before we start evaluating the statements, and that's really the key to data sufficiency in general, I would say, or any data sufficiency that has free info. So we've talked about that many times, and you'll see that in both approaches, that's going to be important. Okay, so for the algebraic approach, we'll start with that one. And they're telling us that if Carmen had 12 more tapes, so if it was C plus 12, if she had 12 more tapes, that would be exactly twice what Rafael has, so 2R. And the question is asking, is C less than R, right? But before I go to the statements, I have to use the free info. So how can one use this free info to simplify the question? Well, there are actually two different ways to do this. So the first way is to isolate C, so we'd subtract 12 from both sides of the free info, and then substitute this into the question stem. The question is C less than R? So the new question now is 2R minus 12 less than R? And so what I did there is I plugged that into C in my question stem. And then we can simplify further. We'd subtract R from both sides and add 12 to both sides. So I'm subtracting R from both sides, I'm adding 12 to both sides. This is my rephrased question. The other way to rephrase the question using the free info is to isolate R from that free info, from the equation. So how do you isolate R? You divide both sides by 2, and you'd say that R is C over 2 plus 6. So I went back to that equation from the free info, and I isolated R this time, and now I'm going to plug that into my question stem, into R, so the question becomes, is C less than half of C plus 6? And then we can subtract half of C from both sides, and then expand that question by a factor of 2, and get this new question. So the algebraic solution takes time. Right? It takes time. I think it's doable in 2 minutes, but it does take time. And so we've rephrased the original question using the free info to two separate questions. Right? If I know which side of 12 R is on, that would be sufficient. And also, if I know which side of 12 C is on, that would be sufficient. We just want to know, is either of those under 12, and either one would be enough to answer the question. So two different ways to answer this question, either by finding out that R is less than 12 or by finding out that C is less than 12. Now we go to evaluate the statements, and this part should be very quick because we've already done all of the prep work. So statement 1 tells me that R is more than 5, but I wanted to know whether it's less than 12. So is it less than 12, given that it's more than 5? I don't know. Could be either side of 12. So we can eliminate the answer choices that claim that statement 1 is sufficient on its own, and we're down to BCE. Now statement 2 does tell us exactly what we wanted to know. It says that C is in fact less than 12, and therefore statement 2 is sufficient on its own, and we can pick B. So this is what the algebraic solution looks like. Again, just want to emphasize how important it is to fully use the free info before we go to evaluate the statements. I think that will make or break our success in this question. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say, look, here's a number line, here's C, and here's C plus 12. So this is the hypothetical. This is where Carmen would be if Carmen had 12 more tapes. And we know that that's exactly where 2R lives on the number line, because Carmen would have exactly the same as twice the number of tapes that R has. Now, I can also put here a distance of 12 between C and C plus 12. And the question is asking, effectively the question is asking for the relative order of C and R on the number line. And looking at my number line, my reaction to that question is, well, I don't know where R goes, therefore I can't answer the question, which is what you would expect, because I haven't looked at the statements yet. So you shouldn't be able to answer the question if you haven't looked at the statements yet. And if you ever think that you can answer the question without the statements, that means that you misunderstood the question. So it's good. It's a good thing that I look at this number line and I say, hey, I have no idea where R is. Now you could say, hey, Carmen has at least 0 tapes, and we're told that if she had 12 more tapes, she'd have twice as many as Rafael, so Rafael must have at least 6. So we can say that R is to the right of 6, which, by the way, if you look at statement 1, telling us that R has more than 5, statement 1 is giving us absolutely 0 added value. We could have already inferred that R is more than 5 just from the free info. Isn't that interesting? So before we go any further, I'd like you all to think about, and type in the chat box, which answer choices can be eliminated without any additional work. In other words, just from realizing that statement 1 is already implied by the free info, what can you eliminate?
A, D, and C as well, actually.
Yeah, we can eliminate 3 answer choices already. A, D, and even C. Why C? C claims that alone the statements are not sufficient, but when you combine them, you get this miracle of sufficiency. And that doesn't make sense if statement 1 doesn't add any value. It wouldn't make sense to say, alone statement 2 is not sufficient, but if you bring in statement 1 in addition to statement 2, now all of a sudden you have sufficiency. That doesn't make sense when statement 1 doesn't add any value. Good. So 3 answer choices are gone without us having to do any additional work. So that's cool. Now, looking back at our number line, we're wondering about the relative order of C and R, and we know where 2R is. So you need to ask yourself, under what circumstances would R be exactly where C is? Right? Because that's kind of an important scenario to think about, because we want to know which side of C is R on. So I'm wondering, well, under what circumstances would they be at exactly the same spot? So what are some thoughts on that? How can we use this number line to think through a scenario in which R falls exactly on C? When would that happen? We know, and what I'm about to say is always true, we know that R is exactly halfway between 0 and 2R. By definition, right? Because what does 2R do to R? It doubles its distance from 0. So the position of 0 becomes very important when you want to infer the position of R given the position of 2R. Why? Because R will be at exactly the midpoint between 0 and 2R. So if R is at exactly C, what does that mean? It means that we have exactly that same distance of 12 here, right? Now C is at the midpoint between 0 and 2R. And if that is the case, then what is C? C is 12. So now we know that if C equals 12, R would be there as well. But if C is less than 12, meaning 0 is closer to C like that, then we would get a yes or a no. R would fall
Yes.
here. Exactly. It would give us a yes. Because R is halfway between 0 and 2R. And what if 0 is actually here? Well, then R would be here, and that would give us a no. So this is a visual way to realize that what would help us answer this question is knowing where C and R fall relative to 12. If we knew which side of 12 C or R are on, we would be able to answer the question. And that's exactly what we discovered when we solved it algebraically, is we need to know, is C less than 12 or is R less than 12? So we ended up rephrasing the question in the same way, but this time we did so using number line reasoning rather than algebra. For my curiosity, please let me know in the chat box, which approach do you prefer? I don't know that I prefer one over the other. I think they're both fine. But I'm curious what you all think. Which do you prefer, algebra, or do you prefer number line reasoning for this particular question? I'm not surprised that I'm seeing many of you preferring algebra, at least for the exam. I think maybe I do too. I don't know if that's surprising or not. I think on the exam itself, I probably would fall back on algebra. And partly I would do that because I'm very good at algebra, right? And I think for people who are very good at algebra and are very confident that they'll be able to get through this with algebra in under 2 minutes, it's a perfectly reasonable approach. I think that for people who struggle with algebra, number line reasoning might be a good option. And I think when you're at home studying, for sure you want to investigate the number line reasoning here, because that improves your reasoning in general. Let me just highlight one more thing here. This is additive reasoning. This is multiplicative reasoning. So we are dealing with a situation on the number line where we have on the one hand an additive situation and on the other hand a multiplicative situation. And as we know, a multiplicative situation really cares about the positioning of 0. An additive situation doesn't care at all where 0 is, right? Plus 12 is going to be the same thing, the same movement on the number line, regardless of where you are in the number line relative to 0. You're always going to move 12 units to the right. Twice as many, right? Multiplying by 2, what does that mean? What kind of movement does that translate into? That absolutely depends on how far away from 0 you are. I mean, if you're at 0, you'll have no movement at all. And so that's really what I think they're testing in this question is, can you combine additive reasoning and multiplicative reasoning into one word problem, essentially. Hey, I'm just going to interrupt my own video for a moment here. If you're finding value in this video, please let me know in the comments below and give this video a thumbs up. It really motivates me to keep uploading a new video every day. All right, back to the video. The creators of this test purposely design questions that will punish people who use algebra and benefit people who use reasoning. Arguably, algebra is reasoning. Like, people have argued that in the past, right? All of algebra is based on reasoning. And that's true to an extent, but the problem is that when people use algebra, they go into autopilot mode. They go into a mindless kind of situation where they're just executing a procedure without thinking a lot. So I would equate algebra to long addition, long subtraction, long multiplication, and long division. And you all know how I feel about those procedures. And so I think that that's... So the GMAT creators know all of this, and they will purposely design questions to punish the people who do that. And the best example I can think of right off the top of my head is an official GMAT question that requires you to divide 207 by 23. This is from an actual GMAT question. And if you try using long division for this particular exercise, you'll fail, right? Because you'll ask, okay, does 23 go into 2? No, it doesn't. Does 23 go into 20? No, it doesn't. Does 23 go into 207? Well, that was the question in the first place. So it's a complete failure. But if you're used to using reasoning, you'd ask, well, what's some very convenient multiple of 23 that I can think of somewhere in the neighborhood of 207? And you'd presumably think of 230 as the easiest multiple of 23 that you could possibly think of. And then you'd say, well, 207 is exactly, oh, look at that, exactly 23 below. So that's 10 minus 1 is 9. So you can almost see how the creators of this test go to great pains to design questions that would benefit people who are reasoning and punish people who are using mindless procedures. If you found this video useful, go to quantreasoning.com for a lot more where that came from. You should also click that like button and let me know in the comments below what you'd like me to make future videos about. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that and click that bell below so you get notified about future videos. See you next time.